Thank you for joining me with the Meet the MBETs Part-Time MBETs webinar. Today joining me are some alumni and current students to give you some insight of what the experience is all about. And to get started, I'm going to give you a short overview of the MBET program, and then we'll chat with the MBET students to have some open Q&A discussion with them. This meeting is being recorded, so and it will be shared to you after this meeting. Questions will be read out loud to the current students and alumni, so feel free to submit that on the chat window whenever you come up with one. And attendees are muted and the video is disabled. So just to give you a little bit of overview, the Master of Business, Entrepreneurship and Technology program is in its 19th year. The part-time is on its 4th year. We define it for those who want to make things happen. The program is entrepreneurial by design. What we mean by that is everything from the program, the structure, including when and how the classes are delivered by topic, and integration of the experiential components are designed through an entrepreneurial experience, which creates something very unique. And we do this taking ideas from our students and creating opportunities or business opportunities. And we go through the commercialization process on a very high level through the program. You will be immersed in one of the most dynamic entrepreneurship and tech communities in the Toronto Waterloo corridor. There's about 15,000 tech companies, 200,000 tech workers, 5,200 tech startups. Waterloo is the home of some tech giants like Google, OpenText, an educational platform provider D2L, and successful startups like Axonify, Vidyard, and Magnet Forensics. University of Waterloo is comprised of 6 faculties in, am I on the right slide? Yeah, I am. University of Waterloo is comprised of 6 faculties with over 41,000 students. Some interesting stats that we're very proud of. #1, most experiential learning, and #3, best overall university in Canada, according to Maclean's 2021 university rankings. #1 in Canada for employer-student connections from QS Graduate Rankings. $2.3 billion in revenue and 7,500 jobs generated by Waterloo entrepreneurship programs in the last decade, based off Deloitte Canada. 474 UW founders have raised $12.9 billion in investments, according to PitchBook 2020, and 19% of tech founders in Canada graduated from University of Waterloo, according to Impact Center of University of Toronto. What makes this school unique is that we have a creator-owned IP rights policy. You own what you create while you're at school, unlike other institutions. Over the course of the program, you will take 10 courses that are immersed in entrepreneurial journey. You master core business and entrepreneurship skills. With more traditional courses like strategy, leadership, marketing, you gain specialized entrepreneurship knowledge in specialized courses like entrepreneurial finance, entrepreneurial organizations, and managing innovations courses. And then you apply those learnings that you learn from the courses to solve real problems in 3 other courses. And I'll provide more details about that in the next slide. The MBET experience is a whole lot of other components outside the courses that make the program what it is. Many faculty members are entrepreneurs themselves. Not only do they have academics studying entrepreneurship and business, from a rigorous perspective, they also have walked the path of an entrepreneur. High ratios to faculty to student. We only recruit a very small number of MBET students per class. So you have a lot of opportunity to build relationships with your faculty members. You'll have many opportunities to attend events, competitions, conferences, guest speakers. Hopefully as the pandemic passes through, that we'll have more in-person opportunities like that. Right now, it's a lot of online. As we have practical consulting courses and sales workshops. Advisors and mentors are accessible through the program to be a source of your business advice and mentorship. And in the practical experience, you learn by doing, which is a differentiating factor. You learn the skills you need to build your business. I'm just gonna progress the slides. So experiential learning is the hallmark of the program, and these opportunities are baked into the curriculum. At MBET, you will complement the academic courses with hands-on experience. So in BET 608, you collaborate with early stage technology startups. You work with either incubators on campus or Waterloo engineering students that may have an innovative technology or an invention, but don't have the business experience to fully flush out a venture. So you form a partnership with them and work on developing a business model and identify new opportunities. In BET 604, you develop a venture or pursue a venture idea with classmates in new technology-based venture creation course. This is where you build your venture or your startup right into the course. And then later in the program, in BET 615, you're working directly with established organizations in the Waterloo region. You can experience taking an idea to market and gain all the unique skills to do that in an existing organization. What's unique about the part-time program is that most students are coming from these established organizations. So you can actually bring some of the ideas from your existing company to the classroom. And these opportunities are all built into the course for credit. So to kind of understand what the experience is all about, I do have some MBET students, current part-time students, and recent alumni joining us today to speak about their experience. I'm going to just stop sharing for a moment. And before we get started with some questions, we'd like to do some introductions. We have Raheem Surani, who's a recent grad, Stephanie Brunsma, who's a third-year student, Alex Dalton, who's second-year student, and then Mark Baxter, who is in his first year. So maybe we'll just take some time to introduce yourself, talk about your academic and professional background, maybe your current role and why you're interested in entrepreneurship. We'll start with Raheem.
Yeah, for sure. So I graduated last year, an interesting hybrid of a part-time program, given the circumstance of the world. Why I was interested in it was, so I come from a consulting background, still in consulting. So I kind of took a very divergent path from the traditional of, I want to build a business. I wanted to be more entrepreneurial in my respective field. And what MBET really enabled me to do was think outside of the box, particularly around defining value, early venture creation. And I apply that to this day. So it really allowed me to pivot while still in the same profession in a way and be a lot more broad in my knowledge and skill set.
Great, that's awesome. What about you, Stephanie?
So yeah, I am in my third year, pretty excited to be almost done. Definitely didn't anticipate the pandemic lasting this long. I think like everyone else
Not
here,
at all.
yeah, still at home. I work for the university full time. I work in industry engagement for the Faculty of Engineering. So I work with research. I also hold an engineering degree, so that's my background. I also hold a license as an automotive mechanic. So very technical is my background before coming to MBET. And since this, I have been starting and working on my own venture, mostly due to the pandemic.
Great. We'll move on to Alex Dalton.
Hi, yeah, thank you for having me. So yeah, I am in my second year, really enjoying it so far. I'm actually also a graduate of the University of Waterloo in legal studies, so I've been here a while. After my undergrad, I went off into the world of startups and tried my hand at various things. I'm really independent, and so I tried starting a couple of businesses. One was Daltonomous, which is a research and development for autonomous vehicles. Did that for a few years. And at the same time, I also ran an e-commerce store called Goldilocks Automotive, which was all about performance automotive parts. And I hopped around a couple of other startups while I was working in an ecosystem and stumbled upon MBET and never looked back. So really excited to be here.
Great, thank you. And for you, Mark.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Pamela. So yeah, how I came across MBET, I came from more of a marketing. I went to Laurier for my undergrad, and then I pursued a career in sport and event marketing. Did that for about 5 years, and kind of got at a point in my career that I was really looking for. I found myself as very much a divergent thinker and had thought about doing an MBA, but it really wasn't the path that I really saw myself fitting in. I like kind of thinking outside of the box and thinking of new ideas. And what really excites me about this program is just being at the forefront of a lot of innovation that happens in this world, and I wanted to be a part of it. And so ultimately, within the last year, I've made a transition in my career into working, moving out of sport and into tech, working at Square. So I do that full time, just started about 2 months ago in business development and sales. And so, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for being here with me today. There's some attendees that just joined us. If you just joined us, feel free to send some questions using the Q&A or raise your hand and I'll call on you. But we'll start off with some questions that I have listed to get the conversation going. And you already covered this, Mark. Why did you choose to pursue an MBET degree? And did you look at other programs? And why did you end up choosing this program? We'll start with, I guess, Raheem. We'll just go in that order again.
Sure. So similar to some of the panelists, I was also mulling the idea of a graduate degree, and naturally an MBA came up. What really drew me to the MBET program was the fact that it kind of sits at the intersection of design, engineering, and traditional business. And I find if you look at some of the biggest companies in the world, they all require more than one skill set. It's not the traditional, I am the strategy person. And what drew me to the program was it's equally theoretical as it is experiential. I really found that although part-time, you really got ingrained in the topics that you were involved in, that it's definitely a distinctive experience. And I think I'd recommend it to anyone else.
Great, thank you. Stephanie.
Yeah, sure. I considered a variety of graduate degrees. I considered doing my Master's of Engineering. I considered an MBA, of course, and then I wondered what Waterloo offered that was similar. That's when I found the MBET. And then I went to talk to an expert in each one of those areas. And the advice I got from one of my old instructors was don't bother with the engineering Master's, mostly because I was already a licensed tech at that point. And he's like, you've got that angle covered. He highly recommended the MBET. He thought it was a really cool degree. And then I talked to somebody else who was an expert on the MBA and really got an idea of what that is. And then of course I did a lot of research. I found the MBA program to be kind of what you do if you want to get up the corporate ladder. And that's indeed like the advice I have. Like if your job is, or if your dream is to go to GM and get to management, MBA, because everybody recognizes it. But I also recognize that an MBA is available in so many forms. Like it's so saturated. Like I can get an MBA online. What does that mean? I don't really know. And then the MBET program, the advice I got with that is because it's not as recognized, you take it because it's a self-development versus some letters that you get on your name to climb the ladder. And I was really into that kind of you get what you put into it, that self-development piece.
Yeah.
That's why I picked it.
A lot of great points. What about you, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very similar story for me. As I mentioned with my businesses, I felt I wasn't growing. I wasn't getting the results that I was expecting when someone says, oh, start your own business. You'll be your own boss or whatever. And there I was 3 years into it. Oh man, okay, where am I going? And I said, look, if I didn't have any formal background, and I said, I need some business training. And I looked at MBAs, as everyone else mentioned. Specifically, I looked at like the Ted Rogers MBA. And as I was looking at the list, I also had MBET beside me. And they have this one, they have this one, they have this one, they have this one. And I was like, great. So MBET has all the skill sets from an MBA, but then it has everything related to entrepreneurship. I want to be my own boss still. That's the dream. And so for me, it was critical to have this entrepreneurial training. What does it mean to think like an entrepreneur? And that was what really drew me. Another piece was part-time. Yeah, 3 years is a long time, but it allowed me to work, which is vital, and also study at a pace that I thought was quite reasonable, allowing me to get this done with the resources I had, with the connections. So 3 years of networking at Waterloo is quite amazing. And so there was a lot of pluses there that drew me to MBET.
Great. Thank you. And Mark, you've already spoke about this, but if you have anything to add, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I would probably echo what Alex said too. I think in fitting on in my lifestyle. I wanted something where it gave me an opportunity to still work, but then um, also build a network kind of outside of my work. And so, you know, having an opportunity over 3 years to develop relationships with faculty and students was important, because I find that's, you know, the big part of the value of doing your master's is the network. And yeah, I would just like echo a lot of the similar thoughts about just um, being a program that's much more innovative and much more focused on the entrepreneur. I think the way that the world is working, I think everyone's kind of turning to be more entrepreneurial. And I thought for myself that was a better opportunity for me to grow and to kind of develop a lot of skills that would force me to kind of succeed in the new kind of world of how people are working. So
That's probably the biggest question that we get from our incoming students. What is the difference and why you chose one over the other? So those insights are very helpful. So thank you for sharing that. Another big concern that we get from a lot of incoming students is, what is the workload like? How do you balance work and personal, and how much homework do you get, and balancing a full-time job? How are any tips on that and that you can share? I'll start with Raheem.
So mine is probably going to be a dated response, but one thing that I found really helpful was that I would always work remote on the Friday of MBET, and I would always treat that as like your cram day. I would also just make sure like there'd be a day of the week where I would, as much as possible, try to connect with another student, just to kind of hold yourselves accountable. Because one thing that I found was it kind of goes in peaks and troughs. There's points where you're like, oh, everything is colliding together. And then there's times where it's like, hey, there's like a 2-month deadline. So I would strongly recommend like working with your peers to manage your day by day, because we all have busy lives. But it's very easy, especially when it's part-time, to let it slip away.
Yeah.
That I would just encourage the group to kind of like keep your own sort of work plan going.
And you're the only one that's gone through all the 3 years already. So
Yeah, exactly.
So you understand the cadence. So can you speak a little bit about like the first year, second year, third year, like what you've seen?
For sure. So in the first year, bet 608, I believe, the early venture creation was the intensive. It was the one course you were one and done with. That was a really great course, and I would strongly recommend for those that are in your first year or embarking on your first year to really like soak in, because as I look back at the subsequent teachings, a lot of it tied back to that. So I would say that. Another thing was, you have a small cohort, try to work with different people as much as possible. I think like one thing is, it's very easy to say, hey, first few classes, I found my crew, let me stay within my crew. Like use this, it's kind of like, I think Stephanie mentioned self-development. You get what you put in, work with different people, get different ideas, and really grow with your cohort, because pretty soon 3 years fly by.
Yeah, great. Stephanie, you're in your third year. I know we've made a lot of modifications since Raheem completed his MBET. We learn from every year and we improve every year. What's your experience been like in the third year?
So in the third year, I made a real shift because I started working on my own thing. So like in the previous 2 years, I was working on something related to my job to provide value there. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, I was unable to do some of that market analysis, but I needed to continue working on something. So I shifted onto kind of my side social project. And I actually lined up a lot of competitions in my third year. it's not that I had any more time available, but I wanted to take advantage of the fact that I could apply as a student, and it was my final year to do that. One great benefit is most of the competitions were virtual. So I should also say I'm a mom. Like I work full time and I'm a mom, so my time is precious. But this environment allowed me to attend some of those competitions and get some different perspectives and some serious feedback on my pitch and on my idea. So the competitions were really valuable, and time was tight, but it's okay. I was really passionate about it. Like you just get through it, right? Like to Raheem's, like it is a self-development. You get what you put into it. And I recommend you talk to your family and say, I'm doing this. And I'm doing this so I can do this big, great thing, and make sure that they are behind you, or tell them they have to be.
Good point, for sure. Family support is so big when you're doing part-time studies, for sure. Alex, you're in your second year. How's that going, and what is the workload like outside in the classroom?
Yeah, so I guess I have an interesting experience that my first year was fully in person and my second year has been basically virtual. So I've seen both sides equally. And I would say that in the first year, there was a lot of um, new and overwhelming information when it comes to, like 608. There's just so many new innovative ways of thinking, new documentation thrown at you. You're in your venture creation 604 right away. You're starting some strategy right away, and it's all these courses coming right at you really quickly that you're like, oh, okay, this is a master's program. And then you come into your second year and you see how things are done. You understand how the courses work, you know your profs, you know your cohort, as Raheem said. In the first year, I think it is really, really important to try and work on the group work with a different group every time. That's been a real mandate of mine, to make sure that I see how other people work, find who clicks, find who doesn't, but work on everyone. So if someone's not working, okay, why not? Because I'm going to meet with these people in the future. If I'm their boss, I need to know how to manage any type of personality. So everything you're doing in MBET is working for the greater good of creating your business. The virtual environment was totally different. Lots of Zoom calls, as everyone knows. And I actually found the workload not to be as bad in the second year. I think just because of the pandemic, some of the deadlines were extended where necessary. People understood about Zoom fatigue. There was a lot of support within the program. So you could reach out to your profs. Hey, this is going on. Hey, I'm struggling with this. And they were very supportful. So the faculty has been phenomenal, and the staff as well, just excellent to work with through the pandemic. I'm interested in going back in person. I think that'll be pretty important. But I've been able to manage, I think, as everyone else has said so far, this is a program that you get in what you, or you get out what you put in. So for me, that means really striving hard, because there's competition out there for everything you do, and you need to be the best when you're building your business. So as with any program, there's someone who said, oh, I just need to pass. That's not it for me, right? This is striving to be the best, because I know that my future career and business depend on that.
That's a great attitude. And the ones that I've seen succeed after MBET are the ones that had the same. You put in and you get as much as you can that we have to offer through the program. Mark, you're just finishing up your first year. How has that been?
Yeah, so I've been I guess the first few weeks where we were in class, but mostly remote. So yeah, I've definitely learned a lot in the first year. I think especially managing your time. Like I think everyone's said here, you kind of put what you can in it. And I also kind of was going through a job transition through the year, and so like what I've learned definitely is that I'm definitely looking to get better on in my second year is just again like setting aside time every single week. You have classes once every 3 weeks, but still setting side time every week to have some kind of like asynchronous kind of learnings, or just touching base with a fellow MBET. And so I think that's part of like the learning of doing your master's as well too. And so yeah, I've definitely learned a lot, and I guess that's the beauty of this program. It goes across 3 years. So I think you have enough of a time frame where you can kind of digest things and learn as you kind of go through your years. And I think that's probably my biggest takeaway from my first year is I think time management skills is very, very important. And it's something that I'm kind of constantly working on and um, looking to kind of improve in my second year for sure.
Great, thank you. Do you have a venture that you're building right now and while you're working and doing part-time MBET, and maybe talk about what that is and what that experience has been like? Raheem, you're done now. Were you working on a venture while you were in MBET?
So I learned how to determine a lot of failed ventures, if that's helpful. I think like very quickly, not very quickly actually, but I would say at a certain point where I realized there were a lot of elements that I actually wanted. So for example, I advise a lot of companies now on design thinking.
Yeah.
So I would kind of do that for other people. So what the program taught me was how to really validate value, assess a pain point, and actually provide a product that meets the needs of a customer versus creates value for the sake of creating value. So I'm a little bit of a anomaly in this picture, but I will defer to the other panelists here.
Stephanie?
Sure. So I've already alluded to the fact that yes, I'm working on a startup. My startup is for now called Miss Mechanic. And Miss Mechanic started as just a social project. I am a licensed mechanic. I'm also an engineer. I'm also a woman. And very few women venture into those careers, and even fewer stay in those careers. And I wanted to create content. So it was just a social media campaign originally to create content about women fixing cars, right? Because it's so foreign. And I want future generations to see that content so that, you don't associate gender with certain jobs. That was how it started. Because I was a mechanic, and because people find out you're a mechanic and the first thing they do is they're like, sweet, I have somebody I can ask questions. Or like, I have somebody I can call when when they're not sure, or like, do I really need it? Yeah, like, is that really a service, right? So that's what Miss Mechanic is. It fixed that problem. Miss Mechanic is a membership. You get an expert second opinion. So I'm a mechanic who doesn't fix your car, but I work for you. So when you take your car into the garage and you've got a question, or you're like, man, is this like, does this really need this? Or I don't really understand that. You get in touch with Miss Mechanic. We have your full service records. We know what your vehicle should and shouldn't need. And we're going to advise you so that one, you feel in control and nobody's ever going to take advantage of you. Because unfortunately, it happens too often.
It does. I can attest to that for sure. What are you, Alex? What are you working on, and what's that experience been like, working and trying to juggle a venture?
Yeah, it's been interesting. So I mentioned at the top of the conversation that I came in with a couple of business ideas. And something that I learned in MBET is creating a business is not easy. So when I came in with the idea for autonomous, so driverless cars, I learned through MBET that what MBET is not teaching is invention. So you're not here to necessarily invent something. You're here to create a business. And so for me, that was really tough to understand from a technology standpoint. And unfortunately, in the driverless car realm, there wasn't quite the technology ready to create a business, at least for someone with very few resources. So that idea had to be shelved. And then I learned in MBET that, it's less about lifestyle businesses, because at the end of the day, lifestyle businesses can be picked up by anyone. I mean, there's lots of entrepreneurship on Instagram, right? And what MBET is really teaching is innovation, right? And so to take my e-commerce further didn't quite fit, in my opinion, with where I wanted to be post MBET. I came in with a few other ideas, and the important part is to recognize they were ideas for a business. And what I learned is MBET teaches you to solve problems. And there's a huge difference between thinking something is a good idea and shoehorning that in to where there could be a problem versus actually addressing and solving real world problems. So that shelved a couple of other ideas. And as we went through and learned, we learned about market size and we learned about competitors, and that shelved some more ideas here and there. And I'm finally working with another one of my classmates on something. I'm not quite ready to reveal it yet, but we are going to a pitch competition soon for it. But I can say, I did not mention at the top of the conversation, but I do work at the University of Waterloo currently. And I've just been able to segue from what my traditional role is in student experience to working in some marketing strategy using some of the skill sets from MBET. So we're looking at competitive analysis. We're looking at ways to be innovative in an institution that, universities work slow, right? And so how can we get that agile response and utilize the skill sets directly from MBET? So I'm really excited about that in my current career. And I'm also really excited about where I've come in my business learnings to the hopefully new venture coming soon.
You and Raheem are moving to my next question, but I'll let Mark answer the venture question first. Did you come in with a business idea and are you working on now? And what's that experience been like?
Yeah, so I think similar to Alex, I definitely came in with a venture idea. My idea was kind of surrounded around, obviously, with my background kind of being in sports before I moved into this program. It was surrounded around increasing adult sport participation, and I quickly learned in my MBET, similar to what Alex touched on too, is I think what I was developing in my mind was already the product and an idea, and it's very different. And you're kind of jumping a lot of steps by doing that. And so what I've learned in MBET is to really go back to the problem. And so that kind of has shelved my idea. And again, I think I don't have a venture currently right now that I'm working on, but it's MBET's given me the perspective of just kind of always constantly looking at problems, and then not even understanding or like coming across problems, and then also like understanding who else is encountering that. Is that just a problem that you're encountering, or is this a wider problem that you could potentially build a business off of? And so I haven't really found that problem just yet, but I'm hopefully gonna get something going in my second year. I think problems and ideas can come from anywhere, so I can't really say a time frame for it.
Yeah. And you all mentioned that, you were looking into a problem and you had to shelve that idea. That's a common thing through MBET. I think it's a safe place to do that. It is an opportunity to get mentorship and learn from those. I wouldn't say failures, but like that exploration stage. I think it's a safe time to do it. I think it's a valuable to the MBET experience. So jumping to the next question, and some of you already touched on this, have you been able to apply what you're learning in MBET in your full-time work while you're on the job? Because it's interesting how like you go to class during the weekend and go to work on Monday. Have you been able to do that? And can you give me some examples and how that has applied to your role now? Raheem, you're out of it, but maybe through your experience, you can speak to.
Yeah, sure. So right now, actually, I'm working with a nuclear power plant, and we identified a problem. The problem was there's too much time and too much inaccuracy in writing out when something is wrong with the power plant issue. So what we did is we digitized parts of the plant using IoT, such that now it's as simple as taking a picture of a part that's not working, and that could be a faulty door to a reactor acting up. Yeah, let's hope it never gets to that point. And that's now saved like a significant amount of hours. We've had an initial release, and it's been great to kind of see all of that upfront discovery to getting something in the hands of a user. And I would say that's really all attributed from some of the things I've learned within MBET, both from the actual courses themselves and also like interacting with early stage startups as a part of some of the courses to see, hey, what really worked for some and what really failed from others. So I think that's a more recent example of how it's tied together.
Great. What about with your research work at the university? What have you been able to apply what you've learned in MBET?
Yes, so much. I will say that, like, of my cohort, like my third year cohort, like it's been incredible watching them as well, like make transitions or get promotions throughout their career, like throughout their time in MBET because of MBET. I haven't myself, but I applied to my job with the attending MBET in the fall, right in my application. So they knew about it, and it definitely worked in my favor. So that's my favor. But for some of my other classmates, that actually made them get promoted throughout their MBET degree. So that was kind of cool. Personally, I love that, like, your ability to see if there are problems and a real solution to the problem, or knowing what a real problem actually is, or checking out like a cool technology versus a problem, which Alex and Mark had already talked about. Is really easy to do, and you can do it really quickly. The other really cool thing that I can do, and almost any MBET can do, is like create business models very, very quickly. Like,
Yes.
yeah. And that is really great to evaluate kind of any problem, even in the context of my work. Like if something comes down, and even those revenue streams may not necessarily be like paid customer revenue streams, but there's some sort of payment, even department to department, if it's a problem we all have, or, and getting to align like key metrics or the right people, or do you have the channels? Like you can really quickly do a business outline for any idea and determine kind of its weak points. And that's been a really valuable skill. Oh, and strategy. Strategy has been wonderful.
Great. Alex.
Yeah, I'm so glad Stephanie ended on strategy. That is also one of my favorite courses as well, because it's just so valuable, along with like business model creation. But for me, I like the vision of things, and I like to know where things are going, what are my options in there. And so transitioning, as I mentioned in the previous question, that I'm working with the marketing department. So the director of that department has an MBA. So we're able to converse business to business. We use the same jargon and whatnot. But we sat down, he said, I'm so glad to have an MBET because of the innovation, right? The difference of thinking, because at the end of the day, an MBA with marketing, right? You get somewhere, you're using the same kind of tools and resources that all those MBAs have, but it comes back down to what we're learning, the innovation, even the intrapreneurship that we can learn and apply. So between traditional business and that innovation, I think it's a good fit to really apply this to any career that you're in. As Stephanie noticed, seeing people get promotions through it, that entrepreneurship is also good. So it's a great program for people, even if they're saying, okay, I'm not sure I want to start a business. I'm really keen on creating impact. That's huge for me, is creating impact wherever I go. And you can do that, I suppose, with an MBA, right? But there's a different thinking that you get with MBET. So it's great to be able to apply that back to the university as well.
What about you, Mark?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest courses one of the courses that I've really enjoyed, and I found myself definitely like applying to my own my own job, is the leadership course. And it really did help me kind of find my ultimate the new job that I have, because it helped me find what takes like what an organization really truly embraces leadership, and also the dynamic of leadership and followership too, that we learn in Mark Hurwitz's class, and I found that very like interesting, and I find myself definitely really appreciative of organizations that truly understand that dynamic, and so that's been beneficial, and definitely is going to be beneficial as I kind of rise the ranks, um, and kind of start to take on more leadership roles. So yeah, that was definitely one course that I've really enjoyed.
I think one testament to the return on investment of MBET is a lot of like what Stephanie mentioned. There's been quite a lot of students that's been promoted or moved to a new role or more innovative role since they joined MBET. So that's always great to see that some students are already getting the return while they're still studying. Okay, so we have a couple of questions from our audience. One is for me. Can we still apply for MBET Fall 2021? Applications is still open for part-time as well as full-time. The full-time, I would say if you're international, it would be very challenging to join at this point because study permits are all delayed. The process takes about 6 to 8 weeks for the application to be completed. So it would be challenging if you're international, but domestic, definitely, I would not go later than July. And part-time, we are still taking applications. Okay, so the next question is for you all. If you could go back in time, would you choose a different master's? And you can be honest, even if I'm here. Anybody want to jump in?
Hard no. I like this one. Despite the pandemic, which I am not happy with, I still prefer this master's.
Yeah, I would say I would echo that. I just, the thing I love about this course is it's different, and the thinking is very on the forefront of a lot of great organizations that you can really like apply. And I hate to slam the MBA because it definitely has value, but I think for myself, I just love the like divergent thinking of this program and the innovation that it's focused on, and I'm very much a person that doesn't like to stay within like the status quo. I like thinking outside of the box, and this is exactly that program. So I would not go back. I think it suits me perfectly.
I think if I can add to all of that, it's an interesting question going back in time, especially with education. I'm a proponent of lifelong education. And so whether I had picked a master's of some other master's of arts or something, or MBET or an MBA, there's still time in my life to pick another master's, right? If I find that I'm missing some skills, that's again why I came here in the first place. I said I was missing critical business skills that were holding me back from achieving my dreams, and MBET fit that. If I find that there are other things, for example, if there's something more technical coming up, or even something related more towards innovation, then I'd be happy to apply to more education. There's a few PhD programs at the university that I have my eye on. So I think it's less about going back in time and finding the right program that fits you and the trajectory that you would like to go on.
For sure. And the one thing that we've noticed with applicants that are interested, if you're not a fit and you're not interested in entrepreneurship, the MBET program is very difficult. There's some students that came into MBET that really should have been in an MBA, and they were not happy the whole time because we were asking them to do things that does not fit their personality or their interests. So you have to really be honest with yourself about what you want before you choose an MBET, because it is rigorous and it is an accelerated program. So it is difficult if you're not passionate about it.
Sorry, if I can add, the other thing that I really like about this program too that I've been able to get is like a lot of the classmates come from like so many different backgrounds, some more technical than others. I myself came from like a marketing background, so I'm a little bit different than some of my colleagues, but that's what I love about it. Like I've one of my group projects, I am partnered with one of my colleagues and now friends, Furcon, and he's a developer at Wealthsimple. I don't think and he's been able to like show me a lot of things that he works on, and his kind of world. And so getting exposed to those other sides and personalities has been really interesting to me and beneficial.
Yeah, and that goes back to the point that I think it was Alex or Raheem that brought up, work with everybody as much as possible through your 3 years and don't just stick with your clique. And you have to really experience everyone's different personalities and kind of adapt and learn from that. It is also the part of the learning experience, for sure. The next question is more for me, and it's about references, but I'll just generalize it because it's pretty specific. So references can be really challenging if you've been out of school for a while. Some, students have been out of school for more than 10 years, and how are you going to get your academic references for that? If that is the case, feel free to email us at mbet@uwaterloo.ca and tell us about your circumstance, and you could be exempted. Professional references is required. So what's acceptable is supervisors that you've had, even through internships or co-ops, is still acceptable, as long as they can speak about your work ethic and your performance. That's acceptable. But if you do run into issues, we do understand, and email us, and we can see if you can fit into the exemption. I think I don't have any more questions from the audience, but I do have one more question before we wrap up. Can you tell me, maybe if you can just summarize your experience been like, so that people can kind of like visualize themselves or like see if this is for them, and really, like pretty high level feedback on what you have experienced through the MBET program. I'll start with Raheem.
Sure. I would say it's hands-on. It's a bunch of different things at the same time, but that's a part of the fun. It's not traditional by design, because having a venture is not traditional by design. I would say it preps you not just from a knowledge standpoint, but the behaviors and practices that you need to manage your time and focus on the most important thing at the right time. So I think I think like we've all kind of touched upon the personality tweak in comparison to, say, a traditional program. And I think that's a key piece of it. I think even in a remote world, you can still have a certain culture when it comes to your peers and your ways of working, that I think that's what this program enables. So for those that are in the stage of evaluating, I would say you want to jump right in. This is the place to be.
How about you, Stephanie?
I would say that so MBET, like being an entrepreneur is really like a self-development, as much as like, so you're developing yourself as much as you're developing your education. And so if you're not ready to take a hard look in the mirror and really challenge some of the beliefs that you have, not like fundamental value beliefs, but like how you think of a problem, or you're just so certain this business is going to work, if you're not ready to hear criticisms and like hear tear downs of here's why, and here's 10 people that have tried before you, and I'm sorry, but this isn't how you need to approach it, then it's probably not for you. But if you're ready to say, you know what, like I'm here to learn, I'm here to be the best that I can be, and really challenge myself and challenge others and have others challenge you, then it's a really great program. And there's so much growth there. I really enjoyed my experience overall, and I got a lot from it, and each year added on to it. And I know Alex said this earlier, like I'm really happy I did part-time. Because I had time to do so many other things. Like my first year, I went to every event possible. So I networked a ton. You have 3 years to do that, which is really awesome. And then that 3 years goes by so fast. I think when I considered the course originally, I was like, man, I really prefer a 2-year program. No, 3 years, it goes. And now I have a master's degree almost, hopefully, if I pass anyway. And then the last thing, like I'd like to say before I go, because on the last question, is there's actually a really good podcast. I think Freakonomics does it, and it talks about like how old the MBA is. And it's a really great podcast because it talks about how the MBA needs a refresh. And in my opinion, the MBET is like an MBA refresh, even though it's an entrepreneurship and not that. Anyway, go check it out.
Great plug. Well, you, Alex.
Yeah, so my experience has been, I think, as expected. I think there were lots of new resources, new teachings, new networks created. There's a lot of experience in the faculty in MBET that you can draw on. All of those were my expectations of going into a program. I wanted to make sure that I was being challenged in all those business fronts. The first year is kind of sporadic. And as Raheem kind of alluded, that's what you need if you're starting your own venture. I thought to myself in the first year, why is there one finance class and then we don't see finance until like way next year? It's because if you're a CEO of a company, you're going to get that rando meeting of someone who wants to know about share structure. And so the MBET is almost like a CEO's day, right? It's lots of information coming from various places, and that challenges you to be on top of all of those pieces. I really enjoy the part-time program. I think the opportunity cost of giving up my career for the full-time, paying tuition, leaving a job, and ventures are risky, may or may not have a venture at the end of it, is not what I wanted to put my family through. It's not what I wanted to do personally. And so this part-time program allowing me to work and still have a life, and also then coming out the other side with a master's eventually, right, was something unique to this program that I didn't really see anywhere else. Other programs being way too intensive for part-time that I don't think I would have had the time to soak up the knowledge that I need. And lastly, I just wanted to say that the people within MBET have been a shining star on the program. So the faculty, right, as I mentioned, there's tons of experience there. So whether you want some deep insight on your venture and why it is not good, or you want to learn more about strategy, leadership, whatever it may be, there's someone who has that experience to talk to you. And they also have their own broad networks that they're absolutely willing to share. The staff is incredible. Pamela here has answered all my questions all the time, right from recruitment. Been a little bit needy, but always with a smile. Always the support staff as well have been fantastic. And then finally, the students, right? So your own cohort will become your friends, right? They'll become possibly your business partners. And then being able to step up and down, meeting some of the third years, right? Met Stephanie in my first year, and we got a chance to talk about cars and everything that we're passionate about, or meeting some of the first years or full-time program. Your network just expands and you get to meet people that you might not have ever thought would make a good partner in a business. And so there are so many facets to the MBET program that have just put it in a different league in terms of masters of business.
Thank you. For you, Mark.
Yeah, I definitely, it has for sure met my expectations in terms of what I was looking for. Like the reason I went into the MBET was to be kind of surrounded by like-minded people that were kind of looking to learn new and innovative ways at doing business. And so that definitely has met my expectation. I will say the school's done a great job on the remote front. I am looking forward to being in class, fingers crossed. But I mean, I still, the learning has never stopped being remote either too. So I've been able to connect with a lot of my classmates and learn a lot. And again, like the 3-year thing, the part-time thing, I've absolutely loved. Like just having, I think I would be very concerned if I went into the program with the mindset I did, and if I was to do it full time, because I think at that, I kind of went in, not really, I had a venture idea, but not really. And I think the 3 years gives me the time to really let the experience kind of like marinate in, for lack of a better word, to be able to constantly be learning and adding new skills that I can kind of bring to my everyday life in the 3 years that I go through. And if something comes up at work, there's a ton of experiences I'm getting. It's almost like work is my lab, the way I kind of think of it. And then I get to go on to class once every 3 weeks to practice, and then have that supportive network to think kind of outside the box and learn and grow outside out of work. So it works well for me.
Thank you for that insight. There is one last question that will take me 2 seconds to answer. Is it possible to expedite the part-time program? The full-time option, if you want to do 1 year, that's an option. I can send an email with that details for that, if you want to explore that as well. Thank you so much for your time, to Mark, to Alex, Raheem, Stephanie. You guys have been wonderful. It's so great to see your faces. I've missed you guys on campus, so it's great to see you. Thank you for spending the time with me, as well as the attendees that's interested in the MBET program. I'm really grateful for giving your insight to them, so that it can help them make their decisions for a graduate program. For the attendees, I will send a recording of the session with a follow-up email with some resources that you can explore MBET further. So watch out for that by tomorrow. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.
Thank you very much.
Good luck, everyone.
Thank you.
Stop recording.